Why you guys say it like that?
I don't know. Okay, I hear that. I heard that. That could be very.
I'm muted, but this is what you would hear.
Oh my god.
I think mine was
Vigorously mixing butter.
Yeah, it's mixing butter, but just audio clipped sound by itself. Oh, brother, that could very easily be misconstrued. Apparently, there's also no way to turn ads off on stream. That upsets me a little bit. Even though ad revenue is like a big thing. But I've only made like 50 cents off of ads.
I love watching ads. I'm a consumer.
It was okay when it was like 2 or 3 like 10-second ads. I'd be like, okay, cool. But now it's like a minute and a half, 3 minutes of ads, 5 minutes of ads, 8 minutes of ads. It's like, are you joking me?
Apparently YouTube on the TV apps get really bad.
Yeah, they do.
Someone had a screenshot or like a picture. They fell asleep while watching a long video and woke up to an hour-long ad.
There's been ads where it's been entire like 90-minute Hot Wheels episodes.
That's diabolical. Yeah. Unskippable.
Well, no, it's unskippable for like 5 minutes and then it skips. But it only says 90 seconds plus. That's the length of that length of the ad. But it's a whole fucking like 20-30 minute fucking Hot Wheels episode of all the cars.
Diabolical.
I'm also now, I believe, multi-streaming onto YouTube. I'm going to check and see if I am live. I should be.
Is it also just Uncle Dunkle?
Yeah, it's also just Uncle Dunkle. Uncle Dunkle with the space bar. I may or may
You're not currently live.
Oh, damn it. And then I didn't do it right. Oh, well. Parker! And Waz. Oh, fuck. I did forget to pull up the other one. Let me, before you do another check-in, I'm going to do this. So I forgot to, I'm so still used to pulling that one up. Loophole equals like hole. There it is. Okay. So we are missing one person from FANFO's group today. So we are going to do the same thing as we did yesterday with Group Panda. We're doing, how do I spell lurking for the chat? I don't know, Parker. We are going to do a one-shot. It's going to be in a similar situations they were in, but a little bit different. As you then are, as the group have entered into the town looking for a carriage, you are approached by what seems to be a wizard of eccentric sorts, and proclaimed up to you saying you look like a sturdy adventured party and very well versed in the world, and he asked a favor of you. He has a competing wizard that is trying to get the eye gem of the gargoyle, inside of this dungeon outside of town, and has asked you and will pay you up front to go fetch this gem to finish one of his spells. You have LARP. You have accepted because he already paid you 500 gold up front. So then you find yourself in this dungeon. You find yourself in this dungeon, but instead of you go down and enter said dungeon, instead of getting colder and more chilly or damp, you find yourself, it's starting to get hotter and warmer. And as you go follow the little hand-drawn map, and the entrance to this dungeon is a stone slab wall, and it opens and closes behind you. And as you enter this little enter the dungeon, you realize the walls are made out of stone slate. The floor itself is made out of flagstone, cracked and protruded up and down. It was almost as if it's like a difficult terrain, almost.
Wow.
With little bits and cracks throughout the room that you see. You see the radiating glow of fire and ember and some kind of heat source. Touching the walls just to check them out, the actual walls themselves are warm, but the more you hold on to them or touch the walls barehanded, it becomes hot, almost too hot to physically touch. So it seems to be some sort of heat and hot and spicy, so to speak, kind of terrain instead of cold and damp of what you're used to.
What does the air smell like?
The air smells slightly tingy of sulfur, like that sulfuric smell, but it's very, very faint. Not pungently, but just you take a deep breath and you can smell it, but just breathing normally, it's not too noticeable except for maybe around some of the cracks.
Can I make a check
Sure,
to
we'll
figure
try.
out? To me,
Fuck you,
I want to
Jacob.
know.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Fuck you, Jacob. Please continue. Please continue, Gingy.
I don't want to figure out where the fuck we are.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Perception, history. What do you want me to roll?
Well, I basically just did perception for you. So, let's go with history.
Real quick, do I have a long rest from last time?
Yes, you all have long rest. You are quote-unquote not cursed, Gingy.
Cool. 7.
7.
We're definitely not in the abyss, guys.
6, 7. Fuck it.
Shut up.
Fuck, someone shoot me. Just put a bullet straight here.
6, 9.
Damn, you real fine.
619. Damn, you're fine.
I'm not fucking old. I'm half crazy. So with a 7, you just know you're underground and it's fucking hot. You do feel.
Hey guys, we
little
must be
magic.
close to a volcano or some bullshit.
You get off of TikTok.
Hot.
Oh, butter
Nah, man,
churner.
just
Butter churner.
Big
what'd you call me?
Sorry,
I'm
scooping into a cup.
Oh,
What's
butter
up?
churner. Would you like to do something or roll history to help your friend next figure out where you are?
We're
Probably
in a
not.
volcano.
My history sucks
I know
ass. Let me see. Let's see.
I'll give you guidance.
What is my history? Well, let's not waste guidance. Let's see if it's even worth it. My history is 0.
Well, guidance is
I'll
cantrip.
give myself guidance and I'll do it. I got a +4.
Oh, good. You're back.
Definitely.
I
in a
volunteer as
volcano.
tribute.
Okay. Roll history. That is a dirty 20, I believe.
Yes.
Yep.
You believe? It says it right there.
How is she back?
Yeah, I had to open the details to see how you got it. Good lord.
Worry about how I got it.
Yeah, I have to worry about how you.
I loaded my dice.
So with a 20, you realize that not only did you walk into this cavern and into this dungeon, but there was a small teleportation spell amongst the border of the door that you transferred through, transferring you to what seems to be somewhere close near either an active volcano or a lava vein interior inside of the ground below. So you guys are isolated from the surface until you find a way back out.
I honestly thought we were in the hills.
No,
That's why I said we're in a volcano.
no, I would not fucking do that to you guys. Y'all would get pissed on and die.
Sure.
Yeah.
I need to stop.
I don't
This
think
is
so.
too much.
I think send it to Avernus. That campaign starts at level 3. I don't know. I've never played it.
Okay.
Whoever.
Well,
whoever-
you now
I'm
see
playing a
you now.
game. Whoever is doing the thing to Josie, stop it right now.
Yeah, I think we had a chance.
So, as you then are realizing where you're at and potentially
Nameless,
with
leave
no
Roscoe
way
alone.
out behind you, proceeding
What
forward,
are you talking about?
proceeding forward, there is a stone slab door off to your right.
Let's open that shit.
I look at one of you guys. You want to touch it?
I got it. I'm gonna kick that shit in.
It is a stone
Whoa,
door.
if Roscoe doesn't want to say
I am
something, you can't
Going
make
He
to
breaks
push
his
that shit
leg.
open.
Obviously,
Roll me
he doesn't wanna
strength.
say it.
Or
Yeah.
athletics,
am.
whatever is
Why do you
higher.
say the mean thing, Nameless? That's
Hmm.
mean.
I'm back to churning butter after making the first frosting.
They're both
Yeah.
+0. But
It was
I have
obviously
guidance.
something mean that he was gonna say to you about you.
14.
Why would you want to do that?
I will also roll.
You think
Okay.
a 14 ain't gonna- You think I'm not strong enough?
No.
Oh man.
I hate that they're wild shaping everything.
Same thing.
14?
Frickin' seconds.
Yeah.
It's pissing
Alright, we're
me
soft
off.
locked. The session ends here.
I thought they
All right,
were
we
gonna
just
do
go
that,
back.
like, twice.
Both of you kick the door, and as you kick
So
and
they can do it
try to
6
open this door
million
open.
times?
I
But whenever
apologize.
I play a druid, I can't. That's fucked up. That makes no
Damn, this
I
door
don't
is our
talk
basin of
to-
vows.
Who are you talking to?
My wife is talking, but he's talking about the Basin of fucking Vows. Oh my god. Just hyperlink the entire summary of what the Basin of Vows is for DS lore.
Finally, he's fucking dead.
That would
The
be dumb.
bird killed him.
You feel your knees and your kneecaps pop a little bit as they jar and slam against the door. But it does not budge or open.
I think
Oh
all
my
three
god,
of us
and,
gotta push on
and
this.
me and him both have fucked up knees.
Oh, yes, sir.
You guys just want to try pulling?
Oh shit. Is there a handle?
Yeah.
There is no handle, but it does seem like you can't. If you look on the ground, you do see scrape marks on the ground as the door would swing inward.
Wait, it's a
I'm
pull
gonna,
door?
Yeah, it's a
I'm
pull
gonna
door,
pull
but-
the door. I'm gonna pull the door.
But you still have to do a strength check to pull the door, said door open in between the grooves of the stone. That
No.
Would thaumaturgy do it?
no,
That can open doors that aren't locked.
no. What,
It's in
thaumaturgy?
the description. Or am I thinking of the right
I
one?
don't think you're thinking of the right one. Thaumaturgy's mental.
You ever just want to bite a stick of
You can
butter?
instantly
Yes.
cause an unlocked door or window to fly open. or slam shut.
Okay, that's dangerous. That's real.
He said
dangerous.
fly open.
Yeah, yeah.
Gonna
that's
whip the
real
shit out of us.
Alright, back up.
dangerous.
We back up. I use thaumaturgy. Open that shit. Open
Uh,
sesame.
As it then slams and shutters open. Would've
Is it really
crushed-
open sesame or is it open sesame?
I think it's.
I think
open
it's so
sesame.
fancy.
I think it's sesame.
It's gonna be better. You don't like?
Is
I'll
it
see that
is it
anytime.
sesame like sesame seed?
Yes.
That says me.
Open sesame.
Open sesame chicken.
Yeah, because why would it be a sesame?
I don't know. Why would it?
It just makes more sense if it's open sesame.
Yeah, it does. Open sesame. That makes a lot of sense.
Maybe it's open sesame, but they have an accent.
Okay, well, yeah.
Open sesame.
Fuck it.
Must not. It's Italian.
Moving on. You caught me off guard. You caught me off guard. I'm not gonna lie. From the outside. From the outside. As the door opens and it elaborates into the next room, you do all. Where the fuck is? Oh, you're on top of each other. You do then realize, or then perceive, as the little jets of fire open and illuminate the room. Immediately as you walk into the room, to the left, which would be cardinally the northwest corner. Fuck. The northwest corner, you get a very interesting smell, but you cannot immediately identify it. It's just funky, it's different, but you can't immediately figure out what it is. Up above
Can I waft it?
You can waft it. You certainly can. You certainly can.
I'm gonna waft it.
I'm gonna waft it. Like waft it in deep inhale before I even finish description?
No, continue.
Okay. You see 3 doors, one to the north, the east, and the south. Above you, what would seem like a secondary story, you see a wooden catwalk bridge made of stone and wood, suspended from the north wall to the middle of the room and then to the east in an L shape. And you do see one hole on the upper floor side, but then nothing on the other side. Whoops, I got the basin of bowels. That's good. That's a good one, partner. Basin of bowels. Diarrhea. From the bells of the tacos.
What's the 6 on the floor? No, I'm just kidding.
It must be a clue.
It must be.
It must be a Don John map, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, it's a Donjon. Dungeon, whatever.
Good sight.
Yeah. I'm just.
But you're saying there's something smelly coming from the north door here?
There's something smelly coming from the northwest corner.
Over here. Over here.
Correct. Were you all pinged? And Randolph said that he wanted to waft it. Are we continuing on with that wafting?
I'm gonna stand over here.
No, I'm gonna act as if nothing strange is going on in that corner.
Okay.
Is there like a dead body on the floor there or some bullshit?
No, there's just an odd smell. Can't really put your finger or nose on what it is exactly. It's just odd.
Just odd. Can I dimension door up to the little catwalk?
Yes, you could.
I'm gonna do that. And you said to the right, there's like a. I don't know a way forward, but I forget what your exact verbiage was, but there's something over there. Like a hole.
Yes.
That's a penis.
So, that is not a... If a... On the north side, there is the entrance of like a carved out doorway. On the east side, there seems to be no door or passage on that end. It seems to end wall there.
I would like to look at this door. Look through here and see what's going on. Does it smell funny too?
No, it does not smell funny. As you then look through that door, The truth is unveiled. All is known in my transcription. Thank you, Parker. You look through the door, and you then find out that your feet is on stonework, and then it turns to glass. And on the wall in front of you of this very dimly lit room, just by like one little flickering flame, the flickering flame that protruding from this wall and window, you see a bunch of dials. You see probably about 6 dials. And they
Guys, I found out what the 6 means.
Now that I'm looking at it like this, it actually looks more like a 9.
I hate that both groups have done that joke. Both, they
What, that looks like a 9?
Yeah, like, oh, look, this room is number 9, or it looks like a 9 from here. It's not a 6, it's a ruse. I'm like, you guys are fucking idiots. So you see 6 dials, all in different directions and sizes. 2 big ones, 2 mediums, a small one, and then like one that looks like almost a longer escalator looking one. What do you specifically, Randolph, choose to do, if nothing? Underneath the glass door, you see what seems to be, or the glass floor, I should say. What seems to be a hallway. What seems to be a hallway with a slightly larger than normal gap over onto the right. Like right here. Maybe about 6 inches. And then off to the left, from what you can peer over and see. Behind a doorway. Can I do it correctly? Probably not. I'm going to try it anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then blah 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 blah.
How descriptive.
You see what seems to be 4 stone wedges pincering into the center, creating with only like maybe a 8 to 10 inch gap between the central point, to where it looks like someone has to squeeze through to get through to either the northern hallway or this hallway you are currently in.
Okay. Hey, next, the door to the north. Is that open?
Wait, where are you? Are you? You're in the other side.
You're not near them. You're up a floor and inside a room. They're in room 6.
I'm gonna come back down here and yell at next. Hey, check that north door. See if that opens or not.
Which way does it open? Does it seem?
I don't know. There's only 2 options. You got a 50-50 shot.
I wasn't asking you, jackass.
I was gonna let that roll. It opens inward, and it is not a stone door. It is actually a wooden door.
I open the door.
It is unlocked, and you open it and see the stone wedges creating a center point in the middle that looks like you would be able to squeeze through.
You know, I could cheat us through here, but I'm not.
Yeah, the guy that.
So there are 6 dials up here on my side.
Correct.
2 larges, 2 medium, and an escalator looking one and a
And then a
small.
long cylindrical looking one.
You just don't want to be.
Is there anything that would make sense to do
Because Cazador
up, down, left, right, or up, down, left, right, left, right?
No, there's no Konami code. That was a one-time thing.
All right. Well, I'm always going to suspect it.
I good on you, but I'm telling you truthfully, there is no Konami code with the fucking dials.
That's what I'd say too. But anyways, what was this again? This little small thing.
It's a
It's just like
gap.
something to peer over.
No,
it's just a
like
gap.
it's like instead of the walls being like together with the grout in the middle, it's spread open
Ah.
like a 3, 4, like I said 6-inch gap. So it's about 4 to 5 inch gap realistically. 6 inches is a little too big.
I'm gonna go back to these controls and the cylindrical one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna fuck with that.
Are you turning it to the left or to the right?
The left is always right.
So you're gonna spin it into where it turns left.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just see and next, see if anything happens in the room. And then I'm gonna spin it a little bit to the left.
As you spin it to the left, you do not hear anything happen, and next you do not notice anything else change or happen.
Can I see up through the ceiling?
No, the ceiling is when you look up, it only seems to be like the flagship stoneworking of the entire dungeon.
But he is a floor above us.
Correct.
And I know he's above us.
You know he's above us, but you do not see where, because to you it looks like stone.
Can I investigate over here at the other end of the elbow? See
Roll-
if anything's.
Roll me investigation.
Guidance! Fuck.
I'm about to say, you're notoriously bad at investigations. So, with a 6, you notice nothing. Even with Ankle Duster, you just have always been sad with investigations.
No, Anchor Buster did good. There's nothing in any of those places. Next, how perceptive are you, or like,
Okay, that's fine. I'm stealing from her upstairs.
how well at you are you
I
at
don't know.
just like, looking
I'm
for things?
I'm fairly perceptive.
I'm gonna dimension door down. How about you go up there and see if you can figure out these dials? I can send
That
you
would
up
be
there.
more of an investigation, I think. But
Too bad I can't use perception. I got a +9 on that. But my investigation is 0.
I got a +1 on investigation.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you up there.
Okay, so next is now upstairs.
Do you want to give me that guidance, bud?
Guidance!
Guidance! I do the little guidance dance.
As I walk up there.
Who sent you
1d20 plus 1d4, right? Is guidance?
Yes.
And we're
plus
doing
D4.
investigation.
13. With
I
a
ain't no
13,
shit.
with a 13 on these dials, you are able to figure out that by messing around and just kind of tweaking them a little bit before resetting them, it seems that the two big ones change the width
Do you want to aggro her?
of the wall, but you cannot figure out what the other 4 mean to do. So as you kind of twist the dials, one dial controls the more northern wall, the other one controls the more southern wall, increasing or decreasing the gap up to a certain degree in the wall.
So there's 4 dials,
6 dials.
6 dials.
Why did she cast Featherfall on herself?
Gonna grab onto the one of the dials I don't know.
So
And I'm gonna see if-
you would not know medium sized, small, or cylindrical.
Let's go with medium size.
Okay.
I'm gonna pull the dial off the wall, if possible. Does it come off?
It technically does not. It's kind of like
Yeah.
a set in. It's not.
I was hoping that there was going to be instructions on the back of the dial, man.
Good thinking, but no.
But there's like no instructions on it at all.
We already
No,
got
none
her
that you
at
can
half
notice.
health.
I take the medium dial after trying to yank it out of the wall. I just full send to the right until it hits a rock or it whatever happens.
What you do is you full send it to the right, and you hear it click 3 times, and then it no longer moves to the right anymore.
Okay. And there's no but I don't notice a difference on anything.
No, nothing physical has changed.
All right. I'm gonna specifically keep an eye on everything, and I'm gonna full send to the left.
On the
Has
same-
the
on the
smell
same-
in
on-
the room changed at all with them doing that?
Was that?
No, the smell has not changed. You did the right dial, now you're doing the left dial?
I'm doing the same dial. I'm just turning it all the way the other way.
After goes back up to where you had it, it does 3 clicks again to the left and then stops.
Okay, so it only moves 3.
It only moves 3 from it, 3 left or 3 right on the right dial from what you have tried.
Ow, but that'll work.
Yeah, again, I won't notice the difference, but just if it's the same thing. I was thinking it was like in the middle.
Ow, what the fuck?
So like if it was like a 6-click dial, it was on the 3 spot.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I could see the difference from the highest setting to the lowest setting. Yeah, I'm lost. Hey, Damien. I think this is your turn. And I go back downstairs.
Butter churner.
Yeah, what's up? What am I rolling?
You're being
Oh.
summoned.
That one dial there is the north and south wall move.
For the big dials.
Nice.
This one, it's messing with the width of this door.
No.
This one.
Correct. They're messing with the gap of the eastern wall.
This, as in this point right here, is the dial.
No.
No, dial is here.
Yeah, dial's there in a hidden second room above the room above.
Okay, so when you rotate it clockwise, what changes?
For big dials, the spacing of the north and south wall for the left and right big dials. The medium dials, 3 clicks either direction. So 3 clicks to the left, it stopped. 3 clicks to the right from the center start, nothing. Small dial, no one has touched. Cylindrical dial, touched a little bit and then left.
You made my brain hurt.
I'm sorry. I thought you'd follow.
I'm gonna go back up there. I'm gonna use the small dial. Go all the way to the left.
All the way to the left?
Yes.
Okay. Roll me perception.
I don't like where this is going already.
Good.
25.
25. You do faintly hear the small whirring of cogwheels, both metal and wooden, kick up higher, as if spinning faster. But from the specific direction of which it comes from, it seems to be somewhere reverberating through the walls, like throughout, but not from one spot specifically.
Okay, what if I go all the way to the right? Does it just stop?
All the way to the right, it slows down to a certain degree where you can no longer hear it.
I'm gonna turn it all the way to the left, and then I'm gonna turn the cylindrical one all the way to the right.
Okay.
Just okay. Okay, you did
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. You turn it all the way to the right as far as it goes. And then it gets to a point and it stops. Nothing that you notice changes.
Okay, so using the larger dials, I'm gonna spin those to make this gap as wide as it goes, since that is width.
As wide as it goes, you see it go from about 4 or 5 inches all the way up to a solid 10, double the size, 10 inches, to where you could squeeze through.
Okay, I'm gonna see what's through there.
You are standing on a glass
Oh,
ceiling.
yeah. Okay, what if this?
You could have someone go through.
Can someone fit through there?
Yeah, someone can fit through those the 4 wedges.
Okay. Next or Damien, try and go through those wedges on the north end and make that right. You
Okay.
might be able to squeeze through the gap. That's on
I
the
will
other
do
end.
that. What else?
You're-
You calling my phone at fucking 9 o'clock at night?
You're-
Oh,
Actually,
Somebody
Damien
took my
would be the best
medication.
choice for this because we can speak telepathically, so he can actually relay me info better.
okay. So, sorry, I downloaded a new app. Remind myself to take my medication. I didn't realize that it calls you.
Oh.
Freaked me out. Okay, so, so I'm
You're
going through
to
this gap.
You're going to squeeze through the gap to the intersecting point in the middle. Turn right and look towards the hallway and go through the hallway to the side there, to the side down the hallway where you see the gap of the walls that Randolph has told you about has increased to where it seems like you could squeeze through it.
Okay, I do that.
So this is what happens. As you squeeze and tilt your body sideways and shuffle through the 8 inches of space that you have, sucking your chest in and moving forward, the mere moment that your leg and chest pass the tips of these wedges, you feel on your ankles your very small and thin wire, or a thread, realistically, pop and snap under the tension. Immediately as that happens, with you stuck stuck in the middle,
Uh-huh.
you hear the chunking sound of an object being fired. And for a mere moment, you see, in rapid succession, 7 arrows all launched all at once at your shin height.
Damn, I don't even get any kind of roll to notice
No.
traps as a rogue.
This is where I'm coming back to you and giving
Okay.
you a reaction. You have a reaction. What would you like to do?
I mean, dive in, I guess.
I don't know about dive if the arrows are coming in at shin level.
The arrows are
You
coming
do
in
you.
at shin level, about 10 inches to a foot off the ground. 7.
Oh,
in
I
a
fucking
cluster.
front flip, like cartwheel front flip over that shit like Jason Bourne.
All right, because you are currently in the center like that.
Yes, that's why I said cartwheel. And then cartwheel into a front flip or back flip once I clear the opening.
And you're gonna go farther north down the hallway or into it? Into
it.
Okay. Dexterity or acrobatics, whichever is higher.
Is it?
I was gonna say at disadvantage because you're kind of wedged in between the wedges. Okay. The 19 would have done it.
I think
DC
it should even out since he saw the trap.
No, he didn't even let me see if the trap was coming or not.
because you said you were just going in. You would go in.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, I guess. True.
Oh wait, you have guidance. All of you have fucking guidance.
Nice.
Roll your d4.
I don't know why we all have guidance, but okay.
I've only
18.
It
given.
guidance works for everyone in a group, not just an individual.
No, it's one person.
It's one person.
It's a
It's one,
person
it's
within
one person,
touch.
one use.
Oh.
It's next action, or bonus action, or check.
Well, I'm giving him guidance so he can survive this.
That's nice of you.
Mm-hmm. So with the 18, you then squeeze through cartwheel and shove yourself through the gap into the wedge, dodging the cluster of 7 arrows, and front flip and land in front of it. And as all the arrows clink and clatter off these stone wedges.
I bow.
Immediately you hear that same chunking sound as another 7 are being launched immediately. You have maybe 5 seconds before they hit you. Maybe 3.
I rope trick.
You plane shift?
I cast rope trick. My rope comes out of my pocket bag and just basically goes up into the air and creates an invisible 3x5 foot portal to an extra dimensional space that lasts an hour. I can go in and out of it as I please.
Okay. You rope trick upwards, and the arrows fly by you and clatter against the wedges.
I poke my head out and see if it's loading again.
Yes.
Because I can hear and see everything that's happening outside of it.
You can hear, but you cannot see, as they seem to be coming
Yes, I
from-
can. No, I mean like outside the whole. I can see outside the dimensional
Yes.
space.
You do
Yeah.
see that they are coming from the hole, but you
Mhm.
cannot see past the darkness in the hole.
What if I turn
Yes.
the cylindrical dial all the way to the right?
So as you turn it to the right, and with these bundles of arrows being shot, you slowly see them start to raise in height. And instead of being around shin height, thigh height, stomach height, chest height, then head height.
Which head?
The top
I'm
head.
just gonna.
Motherfucker, I walked up the body.
I'm gonna turn it all the way to the left. I feel like the lower the better.
Oh, so back to where it was at shin height.
Yes. What if I turn the small dial all the way to the right and stop that whirring sound?
As you do so, the arrows are not launching as fast. You
Okay.
do see that the intermission between the bundles of arrows gets longer and longer until there's one about every 10 seconds that seems to be the longest the longest gap.
So the medium dials are the only ones we don't know about yet.
Correct.
I'm gonna turn one of them all the way to the right. I imagine they're side by side.
Yes.
I'll turn the right one all the way to the right.
As you turn the right one all the way to the right, you do see instead of them being bundled together, you do see about 3 or 4 of them group off and then be side by side. So one through the center and one barely scraping the sides of the wall. And now it's instead of one big bundle, it's 2 separate bundles of arrows.
Okay, the left one all the way to the right.
You then see it go all the way to the edge of the walls in 2 separate bundles to where it looks like a person could shimmy
What the
between
fuck was
them.
the apron for?
Yes!
Keep on dirty little shirt.
Oh God. What else did
I would tell Damien he's good, but he's right there. He can see it's good.
Mm-hmm. Whenever he gets back from churning butter.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm back.
So, thanks to Randolph, he has separated the giant group of arrows into 2 separate groups, all the way split off to the side to where you could walk foot in front of foot and the arrows bypass your shins.
Okay. I do that. So I need to go this way or this way?
That way.
To the right.
Way 2.
This one. Okay. So then that's what I'll do.
No, not north, to the east.
This way?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
As you do and you get closer to the wall, where the gap is, you do notice that as you get closer, a very, very tiny flame, tiny, is inside, barely illuminating what seems to be a wooden lever.
Pull
Pull the lever trunk.
You pull the lever down, and you hear the whine, the boom, and the clanking and cogs of these wheels slow down eventually as it stops.
Wait,
No more arrows.
so I can go back now?
Yes, no more arrows are being shot.
Is there a direction this way or no?
No, there is not.
Okay, so back this way, and then is there a way this way?
Correct.
So how the fuck did I not see it when I moved right here?
Because the arrows were coming like this.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, if I was coming in this direction, I would have at least seen a little bit of this before turning.
Yeah, but the point was they were trying to get you to go down the hallway to figure out what the hallway was, the gap.
Okay. So is this still a narrow passageway, or does it open up?
It is still. Once you get past the wedges, it does indeed open up. And
Damn. That did nothing but slow us down. That was not important to anything as long as we didn't fucking trip that.
yeah, it's a fucking time killer.
Okay, as we proceed, I want to note that I want to be looking for traps, so just let me know when I have to roll for that.
I understood. I will definitely let you know.
While he's going in that room, can I open up this door here to see what's on it on the other side?
We're splitting the party.
No, I never said we were splitting the party. He's checking up ahead here. Wait, are we just going up this way?
They're going up north, yes.
Yeah, I just opened the door to see what's beyond it before we go up.
You try to open the door, and that door is locked.
All right, same thing. Real quick.
That door is indeed open, but it is a stone door. And as you open up that door and look inside, you do in fact see that this room is cylindrical in shape, and in the middle
Is it 2?
God damn it. Yes, it is a 2. But in the middle, there seems to be a purple crystal, very thin and translucent, holding some kind of entity in the center of it as it slowly just sits there hovering.
Because I just cast fairy fire.
Hey, guys, before you walk off, you want to steal something?
This is humanoid size, by the way.
Wasted a fucking spell slot for no reason.
Want to make a heist?
What
Sure.
the fuck?
It's the worst that could happen.
That
Let's steal
pissed
this
me
crystal,
off.
then we can go back the other way.
Area of effect,
Yeah.
and it said no to me.
If Damien is talking, I can't hear him. He's too far away.
That's such bullshit.
Sorry, I'm in the kitchen.
Your whole apartment's like 400 square feet. It's not that far.
Hey, sorry, I'm a broke ass bitch and I have a cheap life, and my apartment's small.
I'm
And
just.
all of this house is dumping.
I'm teasing.
Check your privilege.
I'm teasing, my friend.
Check your privilege.
Check your privilege. I did, and it's white.
Oh, yes, it is.
Ho ho ho.
Yeah, but it's not like the rich white. It's like the broke white.
It's Walmart manager white.
That is shit. I was a manager at Walmart.
It's not Daddy's
Well,
yacht at the country club.
I mean, I
white.
was a department. Are we talking department manager white, or are we talking full store manager white?
Full store manager.
Okay, that's my.
Let's say we're not Daddy's yacht money. Fucking sweater tied over the neck, chest. I'm dying at Walmart manager white.
Oh, what?
Crixton, a first-time chatter, has responded, I'm dying at Walmart manager white. I'm glad that brought you joy and a chuckle.
I'm finishing up right now. I'm clearing the way. clean up the mess.
That's why we're here. D&D and laughs. We don't have a Walmart, but I'm that white for damn sure. I don't... Shit, there's very few places I know that don't have a Walmart. So you're going in and you want to steal the... You want to try to touch and steal the crystal? Is that what I'm gaining?
That seems to be the plan. Next, you're gonna have guidance. You're going for it. It's your plan. I'm here as backup.
Ring-a-ding-a-ling. Damien.
What's up?
Roll in...
Perception?
Roll perception for checking for traps. I wanted to say sleight of hand.
That would be disarming the trap. Nat 20.
Ooh.
Natural 20. Good shit. With a natural 20, as you then perceive and check into this room and look into it before holding next.
Wait, which room? Over here?
Room 2. Yes. Oh, thank you for the follow. Thank you, Crixon.
Speaking of, thank you for reminding me. I need a lurk.
Yes. You do notice as you hold next back after Randolph has given her guidance. You notice that right in front of you, at the square tile right in front of the crystal, you do notice a very thin line around the edges of said tile that seem to be scribbles.
Fairy fire.
Seem to be scribbles and sensory trigger runes, to where if you were to pass that, it would activate something. So,
I know.
along
You guys are good.
Along this, oh, you don't say shit.
Nope.
Okay,
That's fucked.
that's fucking great. I love it. I love it.
Seems clear to me.
Yeah. I mean, why would it not be guarded?
Why shouldn't we trust Damien?
Fuck it, we ball.
Don't play off information. You don't know.
I told Nex to I told Nex to go grab it.
Yeah.
That's why you got the guidance.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
So you just walk straight up for it?
Yep. I was told that there's no reason to be afraid.
Be not afraid.
Here, Damien is here.
She didn't want him.
So as you then go in, and old age of treachery will always beat youth and exuberance. Ha! This is true. You walk in, and trusting Damien, you walk in, and as soon as your foot plaps against the second tile, the entire tile lights up. It lights up in a very faint purplish glow, and almost immediately afterwards, the crystal cracks in various places, and then shatters and explodes. The entity inside of it then drops down to the floor, and it is motionless for a quick moment.
Does it look friendly?
Right now, as it seems to be like shaking and breathing and trying to wake up,
She was like so
it does not
mad.
seem to be
She's like,
threatening at this
"Call
moment.
me." She was like, I was like, well, I'm evil. If you don't want him, I'll take him.
Yeah, that's right. You
Be
grovel.
a bastard and ran away. What do you want from me, lady?
Grovel at my feet.
You said you didn't want him. I'll take him.
Grovel? I know
Yeah,
grovel.
she's just an idiot.
As then you see
Like, I
a
understand
yellowish
that she
green
wanted
skin
her husband
kind
or
of stand
whatever,
up
but, like,
and put its hand on his back, on its
Oh.
lower hip,
Oh,
and
that's it.
push up
That's
and You hear bones crunching as
Why
it
do I feel like
tosses
this is a
back.
bird?
It's
I just
not.
want you to know
It's
that
not a
that sounded
bird. It's not a
unintentionally-
bird.
I just want you
No,
to know
why the
that
fuck
sounded
does it feel
unintentionally
like it's the
racist.
birth of Blackie Green?
Oh, it's not. I would not do that to you.
Did you hear me, Duncan?
What?
I said that for some reason sounded unintentionally racist. This green skin.
This is great. I said it with intent.
Yeah, the hard G too.
A hard G.
Said that with malice.
Oh my god. As then you see a gnarled with some stank on it. You then see it push itself up and hold itself up as it stretches and pops its lower back and hips against what seems to be a staff of some sort with a gnarled headpiece on it. As it then turns to you, and pretty instinctively, you all notice that this seems to be a goblin. But it has a large brimmed hat with a slight point and crook onto it.
Do we just fight it?
You
I don't know yet.
You can.
Oh, I'm asking in character.
Oh, okay.
Do we just fight it?
I mean, you've already pissed it off from the seams of it. I don't know if we can try and talk him down, unless you're just absolutely wanting to fight this guy.
Why do you keep calling this a guy? It's a fucking goblin, isn't it?
Sparkles,
I don't know. Go for it. Punch him in the chest.
Gentlemen,
I go to punch him in the
Sparkles
chest.
Mandy is rating with a party of 39. Welcome in, everybody.
Oh wow.
Yes.
What a time to join. What a time to join.
What a time to join as we deliberate whether or not we need to blast this little goblin wizard thing into the nine hells or not. Hello, everybody. Thank you for the raid. So you're debating on whether or not to blast this goblin and fight it as it's then creaking its old bones and kind of stretching out from being imprisoned inside of this purple crystal.
Who's striking
19 to hit.
first?
What?
Oh fuck.
Oh,
Question.
that's a question.
Are there any shadows in this room I can hide in?
There is no shadows. There is just the flickering of little bits of the heat and radiation source of the heat and little jets of fire illuminating the entirety of this room.
Okay,
Smash the
I
squishy.
will ready my bow. Are we all inside the room, or?
I will say yes. At this point, you are all inside of the room here. And then the goblin wizard thing will now transform and be the diamond, just for sanity's sake.
Okay.
Oh, fucking.
I don't even know why we're here.
Drink, bitch.
honestly.
Wow.
I'm just here to punch things, man.
I understand that.
Wow.
As we progress through. I had to do that. Okay. With a 19, you will hit next. The multitasking is peak. Thank you.
Oh, we're engaging?
The next is engaging.
Okay. Let's do this.
All right, what are you hitting with next?
My fist.
Your fist? Okay. Just tell me how it's done.
I
Oh, bubblegum.
just kill him?
You hit with a 19.
Yeah. And the damage would be
Tell me what
I
you do.
think it's 1d8, right? At our level.
It might. It
Yeah.
should be 1d8
It's
at your
1d8
level.
plus
A level. Yeah.
That's 9 points of bludgeoning. Let's use force damage. I get a second attack. A 12 to hit.
A 12 does not hit.
Okay. Unarmed strike as a bonus action.
Attack number
What?
3.
Yeah, attack number 3.
Oh, that's a 1.
Oof.
Okay,
That's
we're
rough.
gonna get to that in a moment. Let's do damage for first hit. Second hit
It's
does
9.
not work. Okay, 9. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now, I know how to be nice. It's okay. So for everyone that is new to the stream, the way that I play things as a homebrew rule is on a physical action, if you roll a critical failure, you publicly roll a percentile die. And depending on the roll of that percentile die, determines how bad of an outcome or how bad you fuck up. So, without further ado, Gingy, as you first rush forward with Nex and do a solid plant of your fist between this goblin thingy's eyes. Friendly, Roscoe, thank you for the gifted subs. Thank you so much for them. It does mean a lot. And Midget, you now are subscribed, one of them. So DM, he could... I don't know about decapitate. I don't know about decapitate. That's a little rough. You plant a solid fist between this goblin wizard thingy's eyes, big bulging eyes, and you feel its skull just crack a little bit as he and kind of stumbles backwards a little bit. Following through to the second strike, you miss as he tumbles back a little farther than you thought. And on the third one, you cock back with one arm. Please roll me percentile die.
I already did.
You said
I already
cock.
Oh shit, that's a 99.
Am I dead?
Oh, that's... Oh, fuck.
Am I dead?
Yes, it
Do I die in one shot?
Do I die in one shot?
I know. I just didn't want
My
Dying
character
one
doesn't
shot,
die in
you
real
die in
game. This is non-canon.
This is technically non-canon.
Please don't take this from me.
Get it from-
Again.
Oh, god damn it. Okay, you know what?
Make his arm explode.
Perfect timing to do this. So, we're gonna do the new thing. I am going to do a public roll of my percentile die, and I will say on a 75 or up, you trip and knock yourself unconscious down to 0 HP. I won't auto kill you because that's just fucking mean.
Are we doing the crotch cam now?
Yeah, we're doing the crotch cam. And everyone on stream can watch it happen now. Oh my god, I actually get to use it. I'm actually kind of excited.
Oh, I thought it was a crotch.
No, it's not the crotch. So
Wait, does that what happens if you're in your uniform?
I'm not getting in the fucking cow uniform. No. You cannot fucking make me.
Yeah, we can. We just paid for
We
it.
can make a donation right now.
I'm rolling. L cam, no crotch visible. Shut up, Piglet.
That wasn't me.
Oh, that's the wife? Pig? No, wait, no. Who's Pig?
No.
That's Eric.
Oh, that's Eric. That's who. I was like, it's one of you guys. And that one is cocked. Reroll. But the saw is a 4. That is a 34. So, with a 34 on a 99, we are as you take the step forward, you are going to then trip on one of the shards of the crystals that this goblin has fallen into, and you are going to slip forward just right feet out from under you. You are going to first punch the ground as hard as you could, trying to imitate it to be a goblin skull, and followed shortly from your fist is going to be your forehead. So roll me damage for
To myself?
Yes, roll damage to yourself of said hit.
Fucked up so bad you punched yourself.
That is a 10.
Tommy knocked his own lights out.
So 10 with the severity of this will be 1.5. So you will take 15 points of damage, and your hand is going to not fracture but be jarred as fuck. And as we then move over to your head smacking the ground, you will take an extra 4 blunt damage to the ground. Critical severity, it's pretty fun. It could be anywhere from really big heavy damage to instant fucking blackout. I will try to never auto kill a character. I feel
Duncan.
like that is rude.
What's that? It's not D&D, but what is the one? I think it's like... Can't remember what it's called, but like there's guns and space and bazookas and shit.
Lancer?
No. So it's something similar. I played a campaign with that
Aliens?
once, and I was really stupid. And I shot my bazooka, rolled a 1, shot it in the air, rolled a 20 on the hit, and I hit myself in the head. But I had so much health that I lived and all my teammates died.
Planescape? I'm not entirely sure.
No, it wasn't that. It's I can't. I don't know. I can't remember what it's called.
It might be the one of the secondary
Spelljammer?
universes.
No,
Was it
wasn't
D&D
Warhammer.
or was it more of like a realistic
D&D.
setting?
It might be Guild.
Like D&D.
It might be Guild.
Spelljammer?
Nope.
Mm.
I'm looking it up right now.
Anyway,
Aliens?
as we figure this out, moving on
That's
next. Randolph,
Yes.
tell me what you do. You see Nex slip and slide and faceplant into the pile of shiny, pointy, sharp glass crystal shards with the goblin on its butt, bleeding from its forehead. Planescape is deep.
I think it was Shadowrun.
Shadowrun?
I'm going to tried and true.
Tried and true.
Tried and true. I'm gonna Eldritch Blast the little fucker.
Blast this bitch. Let's see it.
I gotta turn off guidance.
Oh,
Shit, I wish for the initiative I would have gone first.
well,
It's plus
yeah, 'cause
11.
You have like a plus 11 to initiative. With a 22, tell me how. With a 22,
Hold on, I have another.
and a 26. I have the box set for Planescape Spelljammer on Beyond. I love Spelljammer. I've always been a homebrew guy. I haven't really played that much of other variations. So tell me,
I've
how
only ever
you
played
blast
D&D and
this-
GURPS.
How do you blast this little bitch?
I'm aiming for the face.
Oh,
All face.
all face.
All face.
Get a close up.
That's damage for 1.
Damage for 1. That will be a 20 damage for 1.
Yeah.
And that's damage for 2.
14. Okay. So a total of 34 damage from this Eldritch, from this double blast. As he, how do you care about the setting? Just that part. Tell me.
Remove, my bad, 15 and 12. Apologies, Hex shouldn't have been on.
So move 15 and 12. So 5 and 2.
27.
No, it's 15 and 12 together. Removing
27.
5 necrotic and 2 necrotic.
He did a total of 27 damage.
27 damage. So tell me how this jars and scars this little goblin.
I don't know, it's all face. I imagine he's gonna have a shit look on his face if he's still living.
Oh yeah. The Eldritch Blast will hit his face in 2 waves, and you will see one of his eyes as the spell hits his face. It's going to then curdle inwards and then explode as he grabs his head and eye and curdles in pain. And he's going to be rolling around and thriving and slashing on the ground, kicking the shards of crystals everywhere. Damien.
Okay, so is he prone or he's actually standing?
He is prone. He's technically prone because he's rolling on the ground covering his eye. One of his eyeballs just fucking popped.
Huzzah. Okay.
Huzzah!
Sorry,
Dog
we're going
Bobby,
to
thank you
do.
for the follow, bud. Thank you.
Do I get my sneak technically? Because I'm next to one of my teammates, and he's
You
one
are
next to one of our teammates.
Correct, because one of your teammates is next to you and a teammate is next to the enemy in question. Yes, you do get sneak attack.
Cool. So we're going to be using Dread Ambusher. We're going to be using.
Oh no.
Oh,
Let's see here.
you know what? Prep all your spells and then please roll me. I will roll for the toast up.
He's gonna use every reason he can to use dice cam now.
No, the dice cam is only for special occasions. If it's not special, I don't use
Stubbing your toe isn't a special occasion.
it's-
How often
no,
do you
it-
stub your toe?
pretty
Okay,
fucking
so
often.
as a bonus action, we're going to be using Zephyr Strike.
Okay.
We're also going to be using Sneak and Dread Ambusher.
Lord.
So I have 2 dice. My damage plus 2 dice 6 plus 1 die 8, and I have advantage. And I get. So I'll see this one. So let's do regular attack. We're going to do first attack is going to be plus 10 with advantage.
So the toast up roll is a 6. So as you then scoot your foot out to brace as you pull your bow back for this attack, because you are on broken and chipped flagstone, you will and you will stub the middle of your toe right at the soft spot of your shoe, and you go
Horrible.
It won't break the toe, but it's gonna fucking throb for a minute or two. But it does not interfere with your attack.
Okay. Let's see if I can try it.
The thing is, this is
If
a...
I stub my toe, can I hellish
Did I-
rebuke
what-
what I stubbed my toe on?
Where'd I mess up?
Hold on. The H
Oh,
should
no,
be
first of
there.
all,
I don't think the K.
rolling.
R slash. It should be R
I think
slash
so.
2D2.
Does that work?
No. Why is the K?
How do you do that again?
Just roll 2D20s and take the high shot.
I'm trying to remember how to do it. That's why.
Gingy.
Yeah.
Shortcut and roll 20 for the advantage roll plus the other
8.
roll.
Advantage is KH1. Keep high 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing, right? Where did I mess up?
I can't remember that.
Slash
shortcut.
roll
You have to put-
2D20
Did you like a
KH1.
black slash or anything, or
plus 6.
There it is. 24.
yeah? What did you?
That's my roll.
Oh.
That's
What
me
did you
rolling.
do? What did you press to do rolling? Equals what?
Slash roll.
Slash roll. Okay, there we go.
Road Dog. This is funny enough. Oh, 13 for a 23.
23.
You will hit.
Okay.
Start doing your damage. The funny thing is, we're actually missing one person, and this is a one-shot, one-off. That, funny
One day.
enough,
That's fine.
our Sunday campaign is also doing the same one-shot because they missed 2 people. So technically,
Okay.
they're in the same dungeon. Just a different
Standard
size.
damage, and now we have
It's
sneak
great.
attack damage is what 1d6.
You're level 7. It
1d6. 1d6.
Yeah, this is a fun time. But they also
And
have fun in the
then
main
I need to
campaign.
add
So that's 16.
1d8 from Zephyr Strike.
You're trying to take this bitch out. 1.
We don't even know what this
and-
dude's about.
I know. You're
Wait,
just,
what?
you just
2
fucking.
dice.
You just jumped his bitch ass.
And 2d6
Yeah, it's a
psychic
goblin.
damage.
This is what all goblins do.
Ooh.
And 14, 28 damage on the first attack.
I actually think that's 26. 12 plus 4 is 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 26 damage.
Yeah,
So good
26
shit.
damage.
Good shot.
And then
Uh,
second attack.
Pause before second attack.
Okay.
You then let this arrow loose and it flies. Tell me where it lands. They are
You said he's gripping his eye.
He's grabbing his eye like this, rolling on the ground.
I'm pinning his hand to his head.
They are level 7 in the main campaign, and right now they've just imported their characters over. This is gonna hurt. Oh, this hurts just to fucking think about. The arrow that you let fly whizzes right past Nex's head at a low angle, sticks through his hand, and hits through his eye socket that he's covering from his eyeball exploding from the Eldritch Blast. And it sinks down to the notch. Instantly, you just hear, and he then lets go. Hand stuck to his head, the other hand with his staff releases, and the staff rolls away, and you kill this little goblin sorcerer.
Double tap just in case. Going for the
Do
other
you know
eye.
Speak with the Dead?
He's dead. He's dead.
Do any of you guys know Speak with Dead?
I don't think I do, but I
No.
can check.
Well,
No.
Damien, you can't use it.
Damien can't.
No.
I don't.
His previous grave
No.
cleric could have.
True. Because I'm
I'm sure it's
thinking
nothing
like,
important.
I wonder what his name was and why he was in prison.
forget
So
his name.
Speak with Dead won't let you talk to somebody you've killed.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you killed him. You can't talk to him.
We're in a party though, so I think
No.
that still counts towards we've all attacked
This,
them.
no,
We're hostile towards it.
hostile.
I don't know. None of us know it, so
Yeah, none of it knows.
Yeah.
So congratulations, you killed a goblin wizard.
What?
I'm gonna run his pockets. What does he have?
Take his loincloth.
I take his hat, his crooked hat.
Yeah.
Does he have the gargoyle eye we're looking for?
No, he does not have the gargoyle gem eye that you're
Can I take out his other eye and like look at the group as like, hey, I think I found what we need?
No, you just pluck the other eyeball. 0. This
Duncan, if I die, I'm definitely making a dungeon crawl character.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
He's going to use his bare feet as attacks.
I'm gonna hold up his remaining eye. Guys, this is a funny looking gargoyle, but I think this is what we're looking for.
Funny enough, Crixon, everything in this dungeon is legitimately off the top of my head and what I can type and pull up and feel right. This is 100% improv, 0 plan, 0 everything. There is no story, there is no nothing. It is just what I feel I'm going to toss in.
Yeah, it's a one-off, but we do love to fuck up his planning in normal
absolutely.
campaign anyways.
I have written pages of backstory and planning for things, and they're just like, meh, we're going to do something.
And then we let a city burn.
And then you let a city burn.
There's a reason. There's a reason that our group name is FANFO.
Yeah.
Summon demons to a city and just leave.
I'm a full set kind of guy, and the druid.
They were devils, but yeah.
So, as you
All I'm saying, Zolapar was a self-defense situation.
Vaguely.
Yes.
Mandela effect.
As you run this little wizard's pocket, you find a small satchel of bat guano, which one of you know is used to cast fireball. You also find 3 silver coins and a tiny locket, a tiny like pendant locket around his neck.
Okay. I'll pocket those. I am keeping his eye.
That reminds me of my character who used to collect teeth.
Yeah, fucking Waz's character does that. And
Oh,
any big enemy, they
besties.
just pull teeth. And she's a druid, so it's just like a little bit weirder.
Wait, wasn't that your other character that was doing the teeth thing?
Yeah, it was.
It was the artificer.
Yeah, the artificer pulled the teeth to try to make something out of
Yeah,
it.
Igor found that fucking weird.
Yeah,
by the way.
just a little bit. I need to whisper at the DM. I might have a fun idea. Good lord. Okay, so Goblin is dead. You do now notice there is, in fact, a little room and a door over here.
What happened to the encasing of the gem encasing him?
It's shattered.
It's shattered. It is in thousands of shattered crystal pieces all around.
Except the meth dust.
Yes, except the meth dust. Let's just go.
What about the pedestal that he was on?
There was no pedestal. He was just kind of sitting with the bottom of the pyramid diamond just sitting on the ground. Excuse me.
Boring. All right, do you guys want to go back the way we came, or to get way you
No,
were
we
out
gotta
looking to go?
let's see what's.
Because we were coming this way just to heist the crystal.
Do you try to go into the door?
Yeah.
I'm also prefacing again that I'm
Correct.
testing for traps.
I understand. There are no traps. And as you open the door, because it is unlocked, you then look in, and similar to the first room where you had that glass floor, instead of a floor this time, it is a glass wall. And you see inside the room with said goblin. But there is a small dial board, but instead of a dial, it is a slider.
Is it in the middle, or is it slid one direction all the way?
All the way slid to the right.
I'm gonna slide it to the left.
Is everyone in this
Slide
room?
to the right.
Hold on.
Crisscross.
Yes.
Is everyone in this room with them? Like, is Nex and
Yeah,
Randolph?
I'll follow.
Okay.
I'll follow.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
As you slide the
anyway.
slider to the left, almost as if the room itself kind of crackles with this weird purple energy, you watch in reverse time the arrow pull out and be in the spot where Damien was standing. You then see it kind of reverse itself and roll backwards. And then the Eldritch Blast pulling off of its face. As you pull the slider back, you're rewinding what seems to be time itself until the point where it's back in the crystal. And then when you
We're gonna kill him again?
And then when you slide it to the right, it fast forwards and replays the same scene.
Hey,
I'm
reverse this
gonna
shit, let's
slide
do
it
again.
left and right really quickly, about 3 or 4 times.
You see it just shatter crystal, then dead goblin, then and then back into the crystal.
I'm gonna tell him, I'm like, hey, can you slow down where I hit him in the face with the arrow?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna rewind
reverse
that
that
for him.
shit.
We're gonna watch that in slow motion.
You're gonna watch as it then you find that sweet little section and watch you like tap the dial. You watch the arrow bit by bit pierce through his hand and then sink down to the notch into his eye socket that he's covered.
So when
I
I
don't
had
like
it
what
slid
I
all the way
see,
to
so
his
I can
left,
start walking away.
when
I
it slid all the way to the left, is his eye still in my pocket?
No, the eye mysteriously disappears and reappears wet and squishy in your pocket.
Okay.
Yo, can we
Well,
kill him
I'm gonna
again?
slide it all the way to the left, and I'm gonna go back in there.
Next
And
says
I wanna-
left.
Okay. Well, I'm sliding it all the way to the left to where he's back in the crystal. I'm gonna step back on this plate. Now we get a chance to talk to him. And hope that he has no recollection of what just happened.
I hope he has no recollection of what just happened. I made a fool of
If
myself.
he, after we get some info out of him, I am sliding that all the way to the left again, or to the right.
Well,
I'm keeping his eye.
with the new path,
That is the wife. That is lady.
Hi.
So you're sliding it all the way to the right, and then we'll pick up real second while I say goodnight to her.
well, if we free him from it, it's just gonna reset it potentially. So
Well, we get to have a conversation with him. Just don't fuck with him this time.
Or we could just kill him multiple times.
Well, we can do that by sliding the slider.
No, but we can enjoy it again and again.
Wait. I'm gonna stand right here.
Okay.
Slide it so left, and I'm gonna get ready with some rope, and we can hog tie him.
Okay, let's have a normal conversation with him first. I am
Why?
mildly curious.
The DM is also gently nudging, saying, "Move rooms. You're move."
Oh, yeah, that's fair. I tried to move my character through the fucking Twitch chat. Or through the Twitch.
This is meant to just be a reset room and just be fun and weird.
Damn. Okay.
Yes.
Can we just hand wave that we were nonstop just re-resurrecting him and killing him, re-resurrecting him,
Yeah.
killing
No,
him?
that happened.
No, that happened.
For like 2 hours.
No,
That
not
happened.
like 2 fucking hours. More like 3 or 4 minutes.
Man, all
At
that
least
pent up aggression and anger gone.
I mean, you're the one that picked the fight with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I feel so much better now.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It's like therapy.
It's like therapy.
Alright. Yeah, I would like to reset the room and have a normal conversation with the goblin if possible.
Okay, so you reset the room, and Nex and Randolph, I believe, are leaving. Or are you guys staying as well?
I'm Randolph. I said I wanted to do
I know.
this.
Damien and Nex, are you leaving the room after he reset? Or are you
I'm not
staying
leaving
in?
him by himself.
Okay.
I'm staying with- We're brain buddies. I'm staying in here.
That's
Brain buddies.
brain buddies, telepathy.
That's the term.
I try to be nice, but I also there's times I'm like, I'm just gonna be fucking mean. So
We're
as
I mean,
telekinesis.
we did absolutely murder someone last session.
yeah.
Unintentionally, I mean,
No, that was all fucking intentional. Don't
no,
you say
it was
unintentional.
no, he was supposed to be knocked out.
No.
Yes.
No, they're not share. They don't share a brain. They're both they're both
So,
telepathy
kind of. We're in different forms, but yes.
in different forms.
I
yes.
have.
So-
Listen, accidents happen. It's okay.
I'm telepathic with telepathic utterance. He has something different, but is also telepathic in a different way. So we talk to each other through our minds.
Great old one warlock.
Great.
Goated.
As you then step on the plate and shatter the crystal again, and after about 10-15 seconds, the goblin again just stretches its lower back and leans on its wizard staff. What would you all like to say? Okay, two Tom Bears.
I want to ask him if he remembers the last 5 minutes of what transpired.
Huh?
Okay, good. Don't worry about it. Ignore that now.
What? I get hit on head with club by weird man and black cloak, and then I wake up with purple crystals.
Did this man in the cloak have fancy jewelry by chance?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
As vision blacks, I see man in black cloak, and then I go black, and then I wake up here.
That's racist.
Shut the fuck up.
It's
He went from green face to black.
No. Jesus Christ. Continuing on.
So what's your name, bud?
My name, Wexel. Once you go black. Oh, Crixon knows. Hey.
Did you just say Wetzel, like Wetzel's pretzels?
Yeah, Wexel. W-E-X-E-L.
It's Wetzel.
Okay, whatever. Wetzel's. It's a goblin named
No
Wetzel's.
Wetzel's
After
pretzels.
Pletzels.
So sad.
Wetzel's. Fuck it.
It's because his back is shaped like a pretzel.
We can bend them like a pretzel.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
legs behind the ears?
We're not about to femboy the goblin. We are not femboying the goblin. No.
Once you go green.
Once you go green, you know what I mean? Huh? Oh, God fucking damn it. I'm fine.
What the fuck? How did you have that on the spot?
I can't believe I had that on the
He had that planned. He had a plan. He's been waiting.
He
He's
was
been
like,
waiting to take out that pickle joke.
Green,
No,
you know
the
what
thing
that
is,
means.
like, goblin girls are cool. Orc supremacy. Orcs are better than goblins. I'll die on that hill. I will die on that hill.
So,
Moving on.
so they're like a pack of lettuce.
Why did that one get me? I don't know. I don't know why that one got me. Orcs are better. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you. Bobby understands.
That's more like cabbage.
Continue on.
It's a little-
He
little
answered that
thicker.
his name is Wessels. How do
Well, Wetzel,
All right. Well,
you live a wondrous life. And I start to walk away.
would you like to follow us through here? Maybe we can get you out of here.
Not that
Sure.
far, I guess.
I tried.
All right. Sounds good. You're gonna walk about 5 feet in front of us at all times.
Oh, okay.
I
Duncan,
What?
I want and to use my telepathy, speak into his mind and say in Goblin, because I know Goblin, trust no one.
I'm gonna
There.
speak telepathically to Damien. You better watch what you do. I will mind sliver you.
The Horace Loring.
You don't know what I'm telling him.
So he goes, heh. As he then
You're telepathic,
he-
but you're
he
not me.
looks
You're not
around.
getting detect
True.
thoughts, can you?
He's looking around trying to figure out where the voice is.
I can if I
coming
attempt
from.
to, but I didn't.
He's like, heh. Trust. And you hear him whisper, trust no one. Kind of questioning himself. He's like, okay.
Dude,
Ah,
is he a wizard?
yes, he's a wizard.
Wouldn't he know when someone's just telepathically
Not
in his head?
necessarily. He may
He's
be
a little
wizard.
dumb.
He may be a wizard, but like he's not very smart. He's not very smart.
Can you imagine a stupid wizard? That'd be hilarious.
Yes, his name is.
He only has like
Thor.
one spell, and he only has like
No.
4
A stupid-
mana. Casts
no.
only one half of a
A
spell.
stupid wizard is a personal character of me and Parker. His name is Thorpe. He is an orc barbarian with a wizard complex. When he casts Fireball, he lights a torch on fire and then throws it as he casts Fireball. I love him. You will not talk bad about him.
At that point, wouldn't you just use like a cantrip to light something and use that and say fireball?
No,
He sounds like he wears a dunce hat as a wizard
Yes.
hat.
Yes. To a degree, we had a conical wizarding hat. A stupid wizard's a strange concept. Oh, but we make it work. So
Is it though? I wanted to do a what's the one? A bard, but that sings really bad.
yeah, okay. I mean that works.
Or plays
Voice
music really
cracks in the
bad.
lyrics.
Yeah, I mean,
That can
there's
work.
different types of bards, right?
Yeah,
Swords
there's
bard is
bards.
more of like a somebody who does like tricks in a circus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Continuing on as we passively talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
this. You now have Wetzel Not gonna bar. Can't sing is crazy. Do you have Wetzel go to the locked door on the right, on the east side, or do you have him squeeze through the pathwards north?
He's
First
gonna
one.
squeeze through the password through the north.
He's like, oh, this is tight fit, and he kind of just shimmies through. It goes through and waits on the other side for you all.
All right, this way's. I'm not gonna say that out loud.
It doesn't specifically say you have to be good at the performance for the spell to work. That's nitpicking.
Can you imagine like throat singing?
Lil Xan the Bard.
No, throat singing like those guttural noises.
And everyone's like, it's so beautiful.
Mongolian throat singing is dope.
Yeah, it is.
I know, but imagine doing it bad. Like, let's say some lady named Karen is trying to do her version because she wants to say she's cultured, and she starts just doing Hungarian throat singing.
Well, then maybe Karen needs to shut the fuck up for a little bit.
Exactly, that's the perfect
Anyways.
kind of bard.
Continuing on, we now squeeze through the stone wedges, and you notice a door to the left and a hallway down to the right, with what seems to be a passageway to the leading more north.
Hey Weddle, can you do me a solid and check that door on the left, or can you open that door on the left?
Oh, yes, sure. And he kind
Appreciate it, bud.
He
The
kinda,
door is trapped.
He jiggles the door, and it's a standard wooden door, and he jiggles and he pushes it open. He's like, "Oh, it's open!" And as he opens it, you then peer into the room. Where's my fucking thingamabob? You peer into the room, and inside, right in the middle, we're gonna rectangle this to make it fucking easy. You see a stand-alone chest by itself in the middle of the room.
Oh, that's not a trap.
I'm gonna stand outside and say, "Hey, Waddle, we left you a gift in there."
Is it components? Components for more
Absolutely.
spells?
It's got all kinds of cool spells in there, bud.
Then wait,
Dude, you sound like a predator.
why'd you
Go in that room and open that box for me.
Why'd you shut door then?
We were trying to travel light as we ventured through here, but I thought it'd be some cool stuff for you.
Oh, roll deception.
I'm gonna give myself guidance. I imagine this little goofball isn't gonna notice me doing a little guidance
Oh
jig.
yeah, everyone gets to now see the stream jug because I'm out of the body armor. Everyone gets to see the stream sticker jug. Yay! Covering up the boobs.
No agonizer
Misogynist.
flask, guidance, deception. 15.
That was a horrible fucking toss. We'll try that again. Okay, Gingy, you redeemed toe stub. Roll to see if Wetzel stubs his toe or not. This actually
That's what I was going for.
this actually might impact how this plays out. As we change the music. Let's go, Gingy!
I rolled a 7.
Oh. Well, he's gonna stub his toe, all right. So, as Wetzel enters the room and holding on to his little staff, as he then walks forward, he's just thinking, what spell next? What spell next? He touches the chest and pushes it open. But as he then kind of shuffles because he's a goblin, he's small, he shifts off to the side and pushes it. He then swings his leg around and you hear a little goblin shriek as he stubs his toe and falls into the chest as he jerks backwards and falls with the lid opening. Immediately, as you all then witness this, you then see and hear as a brown cloud envelops the inside of the chest. And you hear as Wetzel is choking. And then
Someone go reset this bitch.
No need. Hold on.
And then as Wetzel is choking, do y'all choose to do anything? Or just let
I'm
him
gonna-
be there?
No.
I'm gonna cast Unseen Servant and have it go in there and open the chest.
No, the
But
chest,
why? You just
no, the
reset
chest
him.
is open. He fell
Oh,
to the chest, and the brown cloud.
Unseen Servant's gonna pick him up and pull him out.
Wait,
of
why
there.
don't you send Unseen Servant? Why don't you send them to go play with the dial?
Reset him.
I don't know.
How far does that Unseen Servant right?
Not far enough for that.
No.
Yeah, not far enough to go to the other
dials do not
side.
directly correlate with this.
No. The dial
You
in the
meant the
other room.
reset. The reset
Oh.
slider.
Reset. Track
That's
it
too
all the way
far.
back.
You can use him as a goblin shield the entire time and just reset his ass.
That was my plan.
So you're just gonna let him die. You're gonna let Wetzel die.
No. I'm gonna use Unseen Servant at least try to pull him out. You know, I don't want to have to walk all the way back if I don't have to.
Okay. You do cast Unseen Servant and then pull him up. And as he then gets pulled up, you see now his face and the top part of his body after falling into this chest is covered in this very thick and distinct brown mold-like substance as he is still and almost
You okay there,
suffocating.
bud?
We should just kill him and start him over. You know, fresh health.
No. This is
gives-
salvageable.
He gives one more and then drops his staff and then keels over in floating
Okay.
by the Unseen Servant.
Okay, I'm gonna dispel the servant. Yeah, this is no longer.
You dispel the servant and his body just plops to the ground.
Yeah. I'm gonna reset it just to the point where he was outside of the door.
Funny enough, as you try to reset the slider with him and his body in there, nothing happens.
Yeah, take his body in the room. But I wouldn't touch him if he's covered in like some kind of brown mold.
Well, I think there goes our body shield. All right. I'm gonna cast Unseen Servant again and have it kind of rummage through the chest.
You can't do perception or investigation through Unseen Servant, and he doesn't have his own stats for that, does he?
That is a good question.
So Wetzel is dead. Bye-bye, Wetzel. You were short-lived. You will be missed forever on in our memory. Twice. Well, multiple
Has a
times.
10 AC, 1 hit point, strength of 2, can't attack. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about any stats outside of strength.
Okay, so in this instance...
It's just mindless, shapeless.
Mm-hmm. So in this instance, it would just kind of entity glance over, but not really know what it's looking for or anything.
Yeah, no look there. But I will have it remove his eye.
Okay.
Told you I'm keeping that
you
eye.
you have the fucking left eye of a goblin in your goblin wizard in your spell components.
There we go. Is the cloud still in there? Is that just like
the cloud has
chilling?
the cloud has settled and started to cling to the floor and settle as it seems to be a thick instance of mold or some brown mold that was sprung up and clung to Wetzel and then dropped and hit to the floor.
Okay. I would like to hold my cloak over my mouth and tiptoe over here ever so gently and peer into the chest.
As you peer into the chest, you do notice that there is almost like a bowl on one side that is pushed up from like a spring trap, and another lever of the chest itself, for when it opens, it clicks to activate and to launch this bowl that is brown on the inside, seemingly holding the mold to activate this mold trap.
Okay. Job done. He served his purpose. Last but not forgotten. He will live on, his eye in my pocket.
Until this session is over.
I'll have this. I'll have this one shot in my back pocket for like if we miss a character or someone can't play it again. I'll just pull this up and we can continue this.
What was in the chest?
Nothing. It was just a trap.
Just a trap from what he saw. Oh, okay. We're pushing
Continue
forward.
on.
Continuing
Is that
on.
an investigation or is that a
That would-
perception?
I didn't roll anything.
That would be an investigation if you wanted to check inside the chest for something.
Nah, mine's not high at all. So no.
Same here.
Okay. So we continue on forward with the loss of Wetzel. And you then come to a hallway that veers off to the left. Next, you are the first one that appears within this hallway. And as you then peek inside of it, you do notice, and you first notice a auditory hum. And as you notice this hum, it gets louder from the room. But you kind of peek in and see the same purple crystal, but this time it's floating between a floor and a ceiling pedestal. And it seems to have this greenish aura around it as it's projecting onto something into the middle.
Hey, I think I found another Wetzel.
We got
Wetzel
4
too.
of them.
What's in the crystals? Anything specific?
Nothing is
I'm gonna
in
step
these
in and I'm
crystals.
gonna investigate it.
All right, so as you step in, you then see that there are 4 pillars, similar style, holding a floating purple crystal with this greenish aura. They are all trailing this magic into the center, where the number 4 is. And on the floor, taking up the entirety of this space, is a giant monstrosity of a heart. Gold and bronzed, with silver lining of all of its arteries and veins, encapsulated in this greenish aura coming from these crystals. Still beating, still pumping involuntary and imaginary blood through this, as you then hear it as it's then being encased within this aura from the crystals.
I poked the heart.
It is fleshy. It is fleshy and slightly damp. And
I'm gonna wipe my hand off on Damien. Step back away. That's fucking nasty. Don't touch it.
And there is a slight distinct hum of this energy flowing from the crystals, but the most deafening sound in this room is indeed the slow beating of this giant heart.
Next, you still feel like punching something?
Why don't we try punching it from afar?
We can
I don't
try
want to
that.
get close to that thing. That thing's a little ominous for me.
Oh, ominous, we say.
All right, Damien, you want to step out of here?
Sure. I'll shoot you with an arrow.
I was gonna hit with Eldritch Blast, but if you want to,
That works
Shoot.
too.
It's not a creature, is it? It's just a heart.
It is a giant heart. And when I say giant, I mean it is probably 8 feet tall by like 9-10 feet long.
But if it's not a
heart-like
creature, you
shape.
can't target it with Eldritch Blast. At least in 2014. I don't know about
We're
2014.
mixing 2014 and 24 together.
But I
so-
don't know what Eldritch Blast does in 24.
Well,
It
let's
might
look
still
up
say
the
creature.
rulings. Let's look up.
make a ranged spell attack against one creature or object.
Ah, said
There
object.
you go.
So
We need
there
a
we
level
go.
2 charge. Charge.
Yeah, I'm
Judge, actually,
Eldritch Blast.
So you're Eldritch blasting the heart
Yes,
as you go.
I guess I still do have to roll.
Pause. Pause on the roll, I should say. As you release your Eldritch Blast from your hands and your fingertips, you see it hit the aura surrounding the heart as it then, like a balloon hitting a wall, it bursts out and fans out around the green aura and then dissipates. I run a mixture of 14 and 24 within the campaigns to make it as fair as possible, but also more fun. So I run a mixture of both. Sometimes it's
Can
the
I,
24 ruling, sometimes it's the 14 ruling. Can you?
What happens if I like mess with these crystals? Like, I don't know. Can I Eldritch Blast the crystal? That's putting magic into it.
You can attempt to do so. Yes, you can try and see if that does anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
So as you Eldritch Blast one of these crystals, you see the Eldritch Blast fan out, similar to what it was around, excuse me, the heart. But instead of fanning out and dissipating, it fans out and wraps around the aura permitted by these crystals, as you then see the blast being slowly absorbed into the crystal.
My turn.
Maybe
Alright.
try something. Yeah, exactly. Try
Damien.
something non-magical.
Well, technically, Damien's arrow is magical.
Yes. But I can also put some psychic in there and whatever we may need.
No. So, Damien, what are we going to try to do?
Well, I can't use Dread Ambusher. That says it's for creatures.
Yeah, that's kind of how I run it. It's just depending upon the situation. What is more fair and balanced versus this is obviously skewered and slanted, and it's not fun or fair.
Okay, so we're gonna do Zephyr Strike. That doesn't say it has to be on the creature.
Okay.
We're gonna shoot the bow.
Well, technically, since it is a static object, there is. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Continue. A 7.
I haven't rolled yet.
I know. I just saw it pop up. I was like, wait a second. I was like, wait a fucking second. A 24.
20. Okay, and that's going to do 1d8 plus 5 piercing magical damage, and then it'll do an additional 1d8 force damage.
Okay. Hold those numbers for me, please. Before we continue, just hold those numbers for me and about what the damage will be. As you release a notched arrow, you see it slip through almost as if invisible through the veil of the aura around it, and you see it sink about halfway into this heart. Immediately, the heart starts twitching and pulsing and shrieking that feels like with its flesh. The entire area that you're in tremors. The walls start to shake, dust rocks from the ceiling, as both mentally and physically within your minds and ears, you hear what can only be described as pain, as something screeching and breathing pain itself into the entity of this dungeon.
Are we in something?
Yeah, volcano.
If this is the heart of it, we're probably in some kind of creature, or this is the heart of like a dungeon.
Is this the heart of the volcano? And if it is, what happens if we kill it? What happens?
We
to
win.
us?
You win when you go home.
We win by living.
Yeah, you win by living.
And if this is the heart of volcano, I don't know much about volcanoes because, well, they're not very much underground. I don't think, not in my area at least.
Says the
But if you kill the heart of the volcano, it just erupts. Yeah?
I don't know. I'm partly convinced this is a dream.
I go to punch you to see if it is, or slap you.
You slap him and you feel the contact of skin on skin as he It's not a
I
dream.
Must
don't
be a
think it's a
crazy
dream.
dream.
Yeah, it's a dream enough that you get hurt.
Yes, Bobby, I did see that you did in fact join the Discord. Thank you for joining, my friend.
Welcome.
Welcome to Blood Gods.
Blood for the blood gods.
Blood for the Blood Gods. Blood for the Blood Gods. Ba-ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. Making sure everything is correct. Yes, he is just a gamer. Ba-ba-ba. Grateful to be here. Thank you. Telling them the number. Okay. So what as this entity and this noise within both your minds and ears, you see the heart pulsating, and weirdly enough, there is no blood. There's no kind of blood that seems to ooze from this wound. But the piercing and shrieking dies down into, instead of a scream of pain, into a wince of ache.
All right. Now hear me out,
Okay, I'm listening. I mean,
my friends,
oh,
my colleagues.
oh, okay.
I thought we were friends.
Colleagues, friends.
Make sure you get out of there. I'm gonna take the crystal bone vial and throw it at the heart and close the door.
Oh shit. Oh shit. Well, there is no door because it's just an archway. It's an
I throw it and run away.
We book it.
We book it.
Okay. Fuck. I totally forgot that you guys have one of those.
We've had.
I know. You each have
We
one.
should each have one.
You each have one, yes. But I did not expect that to be a prominent thing right now. Fuck nuggets. Fuck, give me a second. I'm pulling it.
I'm sure this is fine.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna step outside for a sec.
Yeah, okay. Oh, good lord. Okay, I got it. Oh god, this is... Welcome to the world of improv. For fuck's sake. Alright, whenever you are back, Gingy, whenever Gingy is back, we will continue forward with what happens
I'm
next.
actually stepping out. I just realized I need to repack the shit.
A good 70-80% of my campaigns, including this one, the one shot and the main campaign, the world of Incellius, 70% of it. Oh, okay. As a DM, that's a pain in the ass. What I sent you in Discord. Okay.
I still want that. I hope that I still have that after the one shot.
Yes, everything within this right now
Is a dream.
I told you it's a dream.
It's not. It's a dream, but it is also not a dream at the same time.
It's a dream.
For a relative
Perception.
sense. Yes, I did read it, Bobby. So you're back for a second, Ginge, or are you still stepping out?
No, yeah, I'm back. I need to find something.
Okay. As you throw the vial of the crystal bone disease, you do not physically see it shatter and vein into this golden heart, but you hear it. What sounds like the scrapings of two crystals together, just constantly grinding. Rapidly, you hear that grinding sound get larger and louder as you feel that room itself start to shake back and forth, and the wincing of this entity becomes loud. Again, in pain, consistent, shrieking and making the floors rattle, solid stone walls bust out with its grout, dust and tiles falling from the ceiling itself, as the pain just heightens more and more and more until the grinding crystal sounds stop. The voices and the aura of pain, just as if someone turned it off a machine, stops within your head and ears. Over the next 20 or 30 seconds, with all the cracks in the floor, all of the little juts and heat within this area or dungeon that you were in no longer exists. This dampening heat resides. The glow and the illuminating light that the little flames protruded die out. And maybe about for a total of 1 minute, darkness envelops everything.
This is
But then-
fine.
Quick, can you go back and turn that dial back?
I don't think that was room specific.
Oh, okay, my bad.
That's okay. But then, after about a minute of pure darkness, a sparkle emits from one of the cracks in the ground that initially illuminated red. But now it illuminates a faint, bright blue hue. And then the jet of fire that was initially red is now blue, as a blue flame appears throughout the hallways and cracks. And now, instead of this dampening heat that just suppressed and made the air hot and heavy, oh, motherfucker.
Drowned.
No. Top Shelf has redeemed a DM roll, a D20 for risk.
Oh fuck!
And then he falls
Terrible
with,
time.
He also then falls with, I don't know what this does.
Bad things.
No.
Good things. This will be great. Before you roll that,
Yeah, before I roll that.
I packed my bowl. I'll be back.
I'm sorry. I totally got fucking... I saw that and I was going through dialogue and then... It's like, oh... I butchered that. I'll wait. I'll wait till Gingy's back to continue this off. We're gonna get the dice cam again. Second time in the night. Top Shelf. Sorry. Well, now none of you can bitch. It was someone completely unrelated to the other fucking campaign. This is what its intention was. Oh, good lord. I was enjoying the dialogue. And oh god, improv. Thank God for fucking theater. What can I say? I attempt. Thank you very much, Bobby. I do actively attempt to paint a good enough picture for the theater of the mind for them and the audience. For the most part. There's some stuff I do fail on. But I do attempt. So, for everyone else in chat, my theater of the mind was awesome for real. Thank you. Thank you for that. For everyone else that's lurking or just viewing in as well, I will catch you all up on what we are. This is my D&D campaign with party-specific FANFO, short for Fuck Around and Find Out. This is a party and a campaign that has been running this is session 55, and we run, for the most part, weekly. It is in the homebrewed world of Incellius. And through many misadventures, through many mishaps, good rolls, bad rolls, they are doing their own storyline and everything else. We're chilling with the murder hobos of the group. Simultaneously, in the same world, in the same instance at the same time, our Sunday campaign, Panda, P-A-N-D, numerical 4, they are also playing in the same world as them as well. So we have two groups within the same world of Incellius happening simultaneously. We have been doing Incellius since February of 25 is when we first started playing. And we have gone from 2 groups to 3 groups, then back down to 2. So we have been running this same campaign for, at this point, 1.5 years. Consistently, pretty consistently. But we've had fun. We've had people come and go. Party members drop because of scheduling or sad and painful character deaths. Oh goodness. I will have to be right back. My wife is needing. My group meetings will be brutal. Oh, we do automatically do session 0 startups, so that everyone can have the world explained and how I run things, which is very different. So the Dungeon of Shadows. Oh, good lord.
You know how I was telling you that I had Pon Pon stuck in my head earlier?
Sadly so.
It's still fucking there.
So what do you think's about to happen with this risk roll along with what we just did?
I was trying to embody the fuck around and find out mentality.
I respect that, but the risk roll I think is going to be the icing on the cake.
I think we're gonna be TPK'd here.
I don't know about TBK. I am back. The wife needed something super quick. But yes, we run D&D Sunday and Monday, each specific groups, in Incellius, which is apparently my players have been enjoying it. And that's all that matters. So, as continuing on, picking back up, I apologize. The surrounding area and dungeon has slowly shifted from a hot, temperate, almost scalding style of flagstone and stone into now, as you start to breathe, it is cold, chilly, crisp. You feel your breath slightly sting in the back of your throat with every inhale as you then begin to see the fog of your breath emit from your own mouth and the steam of your body heat raising up around you as a small shiver penetrates through your skin and through your armor and clothes.
Ooh, penetrates.
Hey now. Later. And from that point, now that you realize you've gone from a hot zone to a cold zone, from crystallizing that heart, we will now swap screens to the dice cam. Because someone, thank you Top Shelf, has decided to do a DM roll for risk specifically. So how this works, pretty standard to the critical failure roll, we are going to do a d20. Depending upon that d20, we will then do a percentile roll of 0 to 99 to legitimately see how bad the fuck up will be. If you roll like a 1 to 5, it's gonna suck, but it's not gonna be horrible. But if you roll like an 18 to 20, and then the percentile is like 95 to 99, that's pretty damn fucking close to a TPK. So, as we pick this up, let's roll some dice. Any thoughts, guesses, gambles, high-lows? How are we going to do this?
Is crying still a free
no
action?
thoughts,
Mystical
just
monster.
Crying is always a free action. That is a 4. And now percentiles. And that is a 60. So, between 1 and 2, we are then going to consult the guide.
The guide.
The guide.
The Rogaine monster.
Oh, fuck you. You're just jealous. You're just jealous of my amazing baldness. You know what? I don't even want to do the guide.
Wait, what did you roll? A 16?
I rolled a 6-0. 60.
I thought you roll a
I rolled a
D20.
4. I rolled a D20 for a 4,
Oh.
and then a 6-0 on the percentile.
No, we're fine. We've been through worse.
Better yet. Randolph.
No.
Oh, yes. Your book begins to flutter and shudder inside of your pocket.
Pull out the book. What are you doing?
As you pull the book out, the leather inscripted face that protruded from its bound spine and front binding page is, you see its mouth kind of clenched down and the leather creasing around the edges as if it's clenching its mouth and teeth, trying to hold back something. The pages are rippling and shuddering and fluttering as it shakes within your hand physically.
I'm tossing that shit on the ground.
And as you toss it on the ground, he literally says to you, "I'm sorry. He's coming." As then he starts to speak in Eldritch tongue. The book
Is it dead?
No.
What is he saying? I know Abyssal.
Yes, you do know Abyssal. Even with your knowledge of Abyssal, you only catch every second or third word as it's a mixture of Abyssal and something completely unknown even to you. But you hear it and you piece it together after about 6 or 7 seconds, and it sounds like a mantra.
Stop that shit. I don't like this.
As he then, the pages flip all the way from one side to the other, rustling and just straight, almost like a Rolodex, just flipping back and forth like something is looking for something. It then stops and then flattens out. And within the pages itself, oh, I don't have that pulled up. I probably should for this. There it is. There's my one note of horrors and abominations.
Whores. Bunch of orc prostitutes jump out of the book.
You wish. I do too, kinda. Anyway. You see a black figure. Just a black figure of what seems to be a paw. It reaches out from the book and silently, not a word, not a motion, not a scratch.
I instantly shoot it and pin the hand of the book.
You're just like, nope, fuck this.
Yeah, I'm not white. I see some shit like that, I'm immediately acting.
You fucking hodgepodge. Okay, I will give this to you for one interaction. Roll to hit. Normality. And I will say...
What do you mean? So like, I don't get no bonuses or what?
Yeah, no bonuses, no nothing. This is a straight reaction. Book is boop and boop.
1.
Oh! Yes! Sorry, I got excited. Since that is a physical action, well, That's a 13. You're lucky. Nothing happens. You just knock the arrow, and it fumbles and falls to the ground. As this black paw sinks into the ground as if it's emerging from a water type substance, you then see another paw pull up, and this entity rise from within the book, shadowed in a black bog-like veil protruding from its skin. Next,
Yeah.
the closest thing that this resembles, immediately off the bat, being from the Underdark,
Displacer Beast.
it looks like a Displacer Beast, but it's not. It's missing its tails. It has one singular long tail, but no mouths on the end. And instead of this panther-like Displacer body, it instead looks like something else. Something more boxy, more brutal, and less about sleekness and stealth, but more about raw power. Randolph, as this thing fills the hallway, its shoulders scraping against the cold walls, and its face emerging in front of you, you see 4 fangs, 2 top and 2 bottom, protruding from its elongated snout. 4 eyes right in the front on the side of its muzzle. Without a sound, it opens its mouth, and almost within an essence feeling, this name sticks to you and tracks to you. Moorbounder.
Can I see if that means anything? Do I have any knowledge of
Roll
what
history!
that means?
Roll history! Oh, this is a custom creature and I love it. I kind of created this kind of Cthulhuist creature for you. Well, for you and for fun shit. Fuck, you're gonna... No, fuck it, reroll it. I want to explain this. A 9 is not gonna do shit.
Well,
Fuck!
10
Okay,
do
a 10.
it.
A 10 will do something. A 10 will do something. I don't care. So, with a 10, this is something that you have read in the book itself, that you've created this contract with of Eldritch Horror. This Moorbounder is a protection of the entities of the space. What it does is slips through like a soft hand through water, the essence of abyssal horror and entity energies slipping through, receiving all of the celestial energy and stopping and biting and destroying what it considers corruption. This is not a friend. This is a foe.
Oh, man.
And as you recognize that, it opens its mouth. I need you to roll me a wisdom saving throw. And while everyone else, either get ready for initiative or get ready to run the fuck away.
17.
Initiative!
17.
My mama didn't raise no bitch, but she was one.
Okay. With a 17, you do pass. With a 17, you do succeed. As you feel your mind and entity wanting to black out and blur through these random psionic images, but you struggle for a moment and push it away. As it then closes its mouth, and tries to turn its head. But it takes up the entire hallway. As it then almost effortlessly dissipates through the wall and turns around as if the wall itself wasn't even there, and turns around to look at Nex and Damien, showing you its haunches, not fearing you. Next, in Damien, you do this. You do see this entity blend through the wall as if it weren't there to turn around and face you. It's 4 yellow eyes with black pupils staring directly to where it seems to be even piercing through what soul you would have. Initiative.
Okay. I call first these.
That's pretty dog
13.
shit. So, fucking,
29 on
yeah,
initiative.
he has a
What the
fucking plus
fuck?
11 to initiative. It's fucking weird.
How is it weird?
It's just a lot.
I know. I did it that way on purpose.
Damien 29.
I have a 20 dex freaking alert that gives me a +3 to my initiative. Like, I have a whole bunch of shit that increases initiative. I like going first.
Randolph, you are a 13.
Yes.
Next. Next.
A 12.
Thank you. So. So the turn order is going to be, unsurprisingly, Damien, then Randolph, then next, and then to everyone else, this creature to known by Randolph, the Moorbounder.
Interesting.
So Damien, start us off.
Thinking. None of you guys are spellcasters, right?
No.
I'm a warlock.
Oh shit, never mind. I was gonna cast silence.
It's kind of a spellbound.
But probably not. Probably shouldn't do that.
It is not a Coriol. This is a custom made creature. I had this in the back pocket for a while.
What the fuck? Okay.
If you just kill the book, will it just kill this thing?
I mean, I'll start just by shooting my bow at him.
Okay.
Randolph?
Yeah.
Zephyr Strike.
What if we just kill the book?
I like my book. I don't think that's going to do anything. It's already here.
With a 29, that does hit.
I haven't rolled yet. Nat 20.
Oh, natural 20. All right. With our viewers at home, man, y'all are getting a lot of fun information this session for being a one-off. When a player rolls a natural 20, my rule is they either get the maximum amount of a hit die. So if their damage is a 1d8, they would get an 8 plus their modifiers. Or I give them the chance to roll 2 hit die, or double the amount of hit die. So 1 would be 2, 2 would be 4, etc. For potentially double damage. Additionally, if one of those damage dies, if they choose the option 2, criticals and hits the max damage, they will roll a separate damage die. If they hit that damage die at max, then they do the attack. Then they do the damage again with an additional damage die. It compounds to make epic damage moments. So in that essence, Damien, how do you want to play this?
So you said either max damage or what?
Max damage
or double damage?
Max damage of one of your regular attack die, or you double the dice for your attacks, and you roll 2 of them and add them together.
So if does that include like my dreadful strike and other stuff or no?
For this instance, yes, because you have to roll
physical
dice and it's not static. So
all right, cool. I'm down with that. So whichever one gives you the most, where I have the most potential to do the most damage.
Correct. So tell me which attacks it is. So if it's your main arrow damage, your Zephyr Strike, name it as you call it out.
Okay, so my main attack, my bow,
Okay.
1d8 plus 5.
So that would be 2d8 plus 5.
Okay. 2d8 plus 5.
6 and a 4. Alrighty.
Okay.
So 15.
So then, I'm assuming based on where we're at, I don't get sneak attack, right?
It technically,
correct?
no, it should be boop and boop. That's where it should be.
But, so no, right? Because
No, well, technically this is a large creature, so it would whatever, it would be large and big. So for this instance, yes, you would because of where everyone is at within the hallway.
Okay, so that's an additional 1d6, so 2d6.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
And then
15 plus 8.
I'm also doing damage from Zephyr Strike, is 1d8, so 2d8.
Correct.
And last but not least, the Dreadful Strike, which is 2d6, which is now 4d6.
Correct.
There you go. So 15, 23, 35, 55 damage.
Okay.
And all that damage is silvered.
Correct. Silvered and magical.
Yes. And also the 20 damage is force damage.
So 55 you said?
Yes.
Thank you. Noted.
Cool. All right. Second attack. Let's see. This one is normal. Yeah. Okay, so it's just a normal attack.
Okay.
1d20 plus 10. 19.
19 hits.
And that's 1d8 plus 5. 12. So 67 damage this turn.
Okay, noted.
That is it.
All right, Randolph.
So fucking scared.
Yeah,
I'm
you should
back the hell up 10 feet.
Okay.
And then summon aberration. It's gonna be a red slot.
Okay.
It's still an aberration spirit, so it has my initiative. It takes its turn after mine. That is my action. Bonus action. Can't really do anything.
There you go.
Yeah, that will be my turn. The slot will take its turn.
Yes, yes, it has been a while, Lays. It's been a hot minute. I honestly can't remember how long, but it's been good. It's been good. We're doing D&D. There should be your thing. All players, and then where are you? We're by Damien. No, not by Damien. By Randolph. There you go. You do have control over the slot now.
Where is it?
It should be right there in front of you on the map.
I don't see anything.
You don't?
I
No,
don't either.
Oh, fuck.
it is invisible.
It should. Oh, boop, show.
I can move it, but it's invisible.
Oh my gosh. 4 years, 8 months. Damn. She's fine. She is actually 4 years old now. She had her birthday back in February. So she's full-blown toddler and everything. Toddler, young kid.
Did that move it?
Yes, it did move it.
Okay, it did move it. It's still invisible for me, but I have a square for it.
Okay.
I think I can do I can give it a health bar.
Yeah, give it a health bar so that you can. There you go. Now you know where it's at.
Okay.
Okay.
It is going to multi-attack. It's going to make 2 attacks. They're going to be a 20 plus my spell attack, so a plus 8. D20 plus 8. That's one of them.
17 does
17.
not hit.
Second one,
27
27.
will hit.
Its damage
No,
is a D10.
We've been at this same house for 5 years now. So we moved prior to that, but it's the same house that it's been.
Plus 7.
Same house we've been in since 21, since right post-COVID. I've changed my camera angle multiple times over the years. So you're rolling a total of 13 damage of physical damage.
13 damage. Slashing damage. It cannot regain health until the spirit's next turn.
Thank you.
And that will be its turn.
Yeah, I've lost 100 pounds in the past 10 months. I've had to change my diet up a lot. I was almost 380 pounds. All right, so that's the hit for the slod. Anything else? No multi-attack, just that one?
I mean, that was 2 attacks, 1 missed.
Okay. That is the
So yeah,
slod.
that's its turn.
Thank you. Okay, it is still... Okay, the slot happens right after you, and then that's the end of, quote, your turn?
Yes.
All right, next, how are we going to play this? Absolutely. Just got it trimmed a couple weeks ago.
Walk up.
Walk up, drink. Pull up, drink.
1d20. So this is an attack. 18 to hit.
18 does not hit.
Oh. I have this as an advantage, right?
Technically, yes, because
With
the slot is
flanking.
behind it.
So 23.
23 will hit.
Okay, so this is first attack. Stunning strike, I believe. Is a con save. Yeah, it's gonna have to make a save for me. Yeah, Constitution saving throw.
Okay, I have my number. Yes, it will never go away. What number
That's
am I
weird.
beating?
I believe it's a
14?
13.
I
I think it's pretty low.
It's 13 or 14.
It's 13.
Okay, well, I beat.
Cool. It's still gonna take.
Mm-hmm. Always gotta rock the beard, brother. Always gotta rock it.
10 points of force damage
10 points.
on the first attack. Second
Noted.
attack.
Second attack is still be
Is
at
that advantage? KH1. An 18, you said is gonna miss.
18 is going to miss, yes.
Okay. I'm gonna Larry blows. First one is a 22 to hit.
22 will hit.
Is it healthy enough that both of my hits are gonna hit? Okay, this is a 24, so both will hit.
Both will hit.
So it's gonna be 2d8 plus 6. This will be additional damage. So that's 11 force damage. And on each.
On each hit, I have to make a roll.
Oh no, I'm not gonna do that. I use the whole thingy in majig where I flurry blows and free disengage.
Okay.
I start running away. Let's down this way.
They're making you shave. Like, oh, there's been a few jobs I've almost had to shave my beard.
It's 10, 20.
That sucks.
30,
if you work plants, like I totally understand
40.
that. Like plant industrial. Like
Let's down this way.
Down that way.
I still have a lot more movement to go.
Yes, you do.
I have like 15 more feet.
You do, in fact, see a door at the end of this hallway.
Cool. I'm at the door.
Alrighty.
What does the door look like?
The door is a stone door with an insignia of a moon on it.
All right. At a quick glance, do I know which way it opens?
At a quick glance, no. It seems
Okay.
to be the floor is semi-slick with all the dust that has been shaken off from the walls, and also a little slick from the coldness that is invading into the floor. You cannot
I
tell
wrap
which
my
way it opens.
I wrap my hand to
Yes, Lance.
not get cold, and I just try to push the door open.
The
Secret
door.
third option, it's a sliding door.
The door does.
That's why I can't tell.
The door does, in fact, open inwards and exposes another room for you.
Okay. I mean, we can leave the rest of that up to nothing because I can't do anything else because that's action, bonus action, free action.
Mm-hmm.
So it's your call.
So at that point, that would be your entire turn with every available option done for you. It is now the morphine's turn.
The morphine?
More bounder. Sorry. More fiend. It was more bounder. Time for work. It's fun talking to you again. Glad to see you doing well. Have a wonderful morning. You as well, Lays. You take it easy. Pop in more often, man. I'm on 6 days a week. So I have plenty of time for you to pop in and do whatever. So it is going to, this thing is then going to take steps forward, going towards towards Damien. And as it takes steps forward, looking at the thing that hurt it the most, as it takes 2 or 3 steps forward towards you, Randolph, it's going to sink into the ground silently, as if the ground doesn't exist, and its entirety body is going to disappear and dissipate into the ground.
That's what.
At that point, all you hear is this kind of like scrape, a little bit of like gentle scraping and the clink of something sharp on something light and frozen, like someone tinkling their fingertips on glass or on ice.
He's in the walls. He's in the goddamn walls.
So, Damien,
Yeah.
you get one shot at a dexterity saving throw against the first attack.
Okay. My speed doesn't change anything, right?
Correct.
Okay, because right now it's at 60.
Mm-hmm. What is your AC?
17.
Okay. What is your dexterity save?
I mean, plus 8.
So roll me a dex save. You fail.
Oh, no.
As you hear almost what you can only describe as a shadow slithering, you try to turn towards the hallway that Nex ran down. And as you do, you see this entity's claw pull up from the ground in front of you and slash at you from your chest all the way down to your hip. And you will take and it hits deep, carving off sections of your armor and into your flesh.
Ooh.
You will take 29 slashing damage.
Holy shit.
Also, make me a strength saving throw.
Okay. 21.
You succeed.
Okay.
As you see this claw reach down and grab and sink into the stonework, you see then see its head emerge from the ground, jaws open, fangs barren, eyes glowing yellow.
Where is it at?
It has then, hold on. It is then right here in front of you, emerging from the ground. It then hits you and wraps its mouth around your waist.
Ooh.
Ooh. I like where this is going. And it then bites you.
In my waist?
In your waist. And you will be taking...
Not my rogue dagger.
You will take 11 piercing and 5 acid damage. As it then opens its mouth and tries to bite down on you for a third time. Fuck!
It's really got something for you there, man.
A critical failed.
Oh, yay. It bites
It
its own
rolls a
later on.
percentile die.
As there is the
Cam it.
There is the
Bye,
physical
Cam.
proof. I did. Dice cam. There's the physical proof.
No, down on the percentile.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm going to, but I'm showing you on
Yeah.
stream that, like, yes, it rolled a 1.
That's fine. I'll believe the one. You just got to show us the nat 20s.
4, 0, 0, and 4.
Oh, and it stubs its toe.
Does it have a toe to stub?
It does have a toe to stub. So there you go. It misses, but nothing happens. Nothing. It really misses and kind of like slaps its mouth onto the side of the stone flooring, and then it kind of tries to swipe at you, and its claw gets stuck on one of the flagstones of the floor.
Does it go prone?
No, it does not go prone. So, with that, it is then top of the initiative order.
Perfect.
As we do this, because it is 1 a.m.
I do have work in 7 hours.
Yes. Do you guys wish to continue? Do you want to just have me automatically wrap this up? Or keep a mental note of where we are at, and then the next time someone misses, we come back to the one shot and pick this up?
You could save it. I'd take a screenshot
I'd
of
like
like
to
our
save
health
it.
and stuff.
Okay, I have this saved within your Roll20 world, and it's separated as a one-shot page, so we have it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. So as we then do that, let me clean up momentarily. We were raided, and we will raid out momentarily, since that seems to be the correct thing to do. And for everyone that has joined and came in on this session, thank you very much. It is always so fun to be raided and share what we have going on for Incellius. It is always so much fun. So let's go to someone.
My Lanta.
Oh, my Lanta.
Shit, I don't know.
Let's go with
I forgot. I'm running from my alarm now.
this guy.
A bird there, like blackbird.
So
Or
with
brown.
that, we will raid
Brown?
out.
I'll eat them. Like my color of skin.
No, like after my college.
And we will thank you all from the bottom of our hearts, and we will catch you next week. When Incellius comes back, we bid adieu and good night.
Later.
Peace.
Let's unmute them super quick.
Yeah, just saying that to Aquilina.
Yeah, I wasn't too worried. Though I probably would have eventually. Either they would have worn out, or I would have eventually.
I forgot I was making cookies and burned the ever living shit out of
To be fair, that'd be a waste of your time. And honestly, yeah.
Oh,
I get the thing.
How many charcoal?